There we go. Can you hear me sniff my nose? It's not the coronavirus. It's the pear trees. I'm sorry about that. You know, I think it's a lot of people are just, we've been through a lot in our lives, a lot of us, so we're not very much afraid of what God has planned, and that's part of what we're learning in Covenant, is that He has a plan, and tonight of all nights for us to go through, and I felt like what He wanted me to talk about was to show just how exact He has been through the ages and how He has been very specific in what He wanted His people to do, especially Moses, and they're building the tabernacle, and He just didn't leave anything to their imagination. And so hopefully as we go through and read the scriptures, that may be all we do tonight, is just read scriptures. That would be profitable for us. So thank you for coming, and let's open in prayer and we'll get going. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you that not one thing is out of place with you, that you're the same yesterday, today, and forever, that nothing scares you, no one scares you. You're not surprised, you're not amazed at us, at what's going on here. You know exactly what is to happen. You know, you live without the frame of time. You're not in that. You are timeless. So Father, as we go through these scriptures tonight, I pray that you would open the eyes of our hearts, that we would know who you are and what that means to us and to those we love and to those around us who need to know you. So thank you for another opportunity to speak well of your name. And I ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you for praying. Those of you who prayed for me as I went to Cookeville, I was with some wonderful people. And I saw some very brave folks and people who had experienced a lot of trauma. And we found a picture on YouTube, and this is where I was on Saturday, from about 7 in the morning till about 12:30. And there's no way to explain. There's no way to talk about things that we don't know anything about. I just think we have to be the ones to say, God has a plan. God is sovereign. I don't understand all that God allows. I'm not God. But I do know that there is a Savior, and His name is Jesus. And He brings us peace, and that's what we need in times like this. It's going to be a long haul for these people. Houses that are just pulverized into matchsticks, nothing recognizable. Big beams, those steel beams that you put at the top of the house that everything holds everything up, just turned around like pretzels, just bent. So it really makes you reevaluate how attached you are to your stuff and what really is important. And it's not stuff, because stuff can be lost in a moment, actually in a moment. And that we would live each moment ready. We would live each moment ready. And thanking God that He has a perfect plan. Thanking God that He has been very specific through the Word. So tonight is our 5th week of Covenant. We won't meet next week because it's spring break. Those of you who don't get a spring break, sorry. I have to teach next Thursday night too, but at least I get some of the days off. And then we'll only have one more meeting, and then I have to start teaching again for Belhaven on whatever that next Tuesday night is. So not next week, but the next will be our last covenant study, 6 weeks. Now, we've talked about the law and how God established the law. And when he brought the Israelites out of Egypt and their centuries of slavery, he led them by the cloud of his presence to Mount Sinai, also known as Mount Horeb. We see that in Exodus 3. I want you to understand that. I want you to, if you write anything down, if you don't write anything down, he led them by the cloud of his presence. He just didn't send a puffy cloud. You know, it just wasn't a cloud column that just happened to be going in that direction. But it was the cloud of his presence. And I want you to know that's with a capital P. That we serve a God, the only God who's living, the only God who makes it his purpose and has all these years to be present with us, coming to us and wooing us to him. I was listening to, I found some old CDs of The Message, and whatever the man's name is that translated it, whoever that is, y'all know. Thank you, Eugene Peterson. He speaks at the beginning of this, and it's very interesting. He says, God descended to us. He did not have us ascend to him. And there are a lot of religions who feel like if you get in the right karma, the right place, you're working for ascension to Godship. And our God descended for us. So when he brought them out, he made a covenant with them there to obey his laws and to keep his statutes. He had them construct a tabernacle where they would worship him. He gave them specific instructions. So I want to start back with like Exodus 25, 8 through 9. We have some of the scriptures up here for you. Some of them we don't, because I don't like giving you all of them. Someone asked about a handout. You'll never have a handout with me. I have one, but you won't get it. Because I really want you to listen. I want you to learn to take notes. I want you to listen for what's important to you. I think we've really fed each other too much, and we don't engage with the material. And we have to learn to get that brain going again. And so here's what he says in Exodus 25, 8 and 9. He's talking to Moses. He says, have the people of Israel build me a holy sanctuary so I can live among them. I mean, he wants to be able to live among this people. Verse 9, you must build this tabernacle and its furnishings exactly according to the pattern I will show you. He did not give them a book and say, you know, what would you like? You know, here's Martha Stewart. You know, here's this. You know, would you like a little pattern or whatever? No. He says, you are to build it to the exact pattern I will show you. And he didn't mean maybe. All right? Now, remember, the Israelites are a people who've been slaves for over 400 years, so they don't have organized places. They didn't have places of worship. You know, they don't know what they have. They didn't really have much till they came out, and the Egyptians were so ready for them to go, they just gave them a bunch of silver and gold and possessions and animals. They just went out with a haul when they left Egypt. And that's why they had what they needed when they got to the desert. So we see that he wants them to build him a tabernacle. Then let's go and look at 10 through 22. In that, he told Moses to make the Ark of the Covenant and the mercy seat that would go on top of it. In verse 21, this is what he says very specifically. Exodus 25, 21. Place inside the ark the stone tablets inscribed with the terms of the covenant, which I will give to you. So he's not even given it to him yet. Then put the atonement cover on top of the ark. Verse 22. and I will meet with you there and talk to you from above the atonement cover between the gold cherubim that hover over the Ark of the Covenant, or Ark of Testimony. From there I will give you my commands for the people of Israel. So, first of all, he's just not going to meet him in the park. You know, meet me over there by that sand dune. He says, I want you to build me a tabernacle. And then I want you to build this ark. And this is what you're going to put in it. You don't have it yet, but you're going to get it. Okay? And I want you to put it in there. And I'm gonna be there. I'm going to meet you there. And I will give you my commands from there. So he didn't release the children of Israel just to go hibbly-gibbly out into the new land and find themselves or whatever. He had a plan and a purpose. And I'm hitting this hard because I want you to know, and me to know, that no matter what happens in our lives, our God has a plan. Some of us here are in difficult places. We're seeking God to show us his plan. We've been waiting. We've been languishing. We've been wondering. And I want to just set us straight. Our God is the only God who's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He sees the last moment you're going to take your last breath. He knows it already. He already knows the worst thing you're going to do, whether it's in your past, your present, or your future. He already knows. And he's already said, I forgive her sins. I forgive him his sins. I will lead him as a shepherd leads the lambs. You never see God in the Bible, New Testament, call us full-grown sheep, really, or adults. He always says in John, my little children. There's a good reason for that. We're not adults. We have to follow God. We have to follow our Father. And I don't mean that in a weird way. I just mean that he knows that we are not on the same level as he is. How about your kids? Those of you who have kids. How often do they think they're above you in that level? And they're trying to let you know that. Mama, I need to go. I need to go to that party. Mama, I need that. And they usually do it in Walmart. Mama, I need that. And it's like, no, you don't. How often do we tell God what we need? And one day I was thinking about the sacrifice that God had Abraham make when he put Isaac on that altar. And one day I was thinking about it. It was like I felt like the Lord said, Roseanne, I want you to put all your hopes and dreams right there on that altar and make that the living sacrifice from you to me. And I will always outgive you. I will always outgive you. You're never going to turn something in that you don't get a multitude of stuff back. Has anybody else found that to be true? If you haven't, you just wait. Old age, the crown of glory, I'm told, and more susceptibility to the coronavirus. It is when you learn that God is with us, ahead of us on the path, no matter what we're doing. Just for your note-taking, those A's who have just been dying to take notes all this time, Exodus 37, 1 through 9, he actually gives the instructions for making the ark. He just didn't say, get a box together. I want some angels on the top and, make it about yay big, big enough for these tablets I'm going to give you. No, I want you to see. We're going to go through tonight. We're not going to look at every verse, but I'm going to give you the chapters where he gives specific instructions of everything he wants them to do. Now, if he was this specific to the children of Israel and how he wanted them to pull together his tabernacle, what are we called? The temple of the living God. Do you think he cares about us any less? Or our path any less? I see people who are shame and guilt and competing with one another. on Facebook, always competing, doing this, Instagram, always competing. I just get tired of it. Do y'all get tired of it? I just shut it off sometimes. If you don't see me, I'm not dead. I'm just tired. You know, it's just like, I don't ever see many people go, I'm real, you know, if you do, I'm really going through a hard time. Then you get all the, just keep your chin up. We'll be praying for you. It's like, leave me alone, we want to say. Or we never get honest. We just never get honest and say, I'm a cranky person. I'm upset. I'm angry. My haircut is awful, although mine isn't. I have a really good guy. It has been in the past. Someone asked me if I spent a lot of time doing my hair. No. However, my question, how long has it been since you have asked God, what's your plan for me today? What's your plan for me today? I'm usually telling him to bless my plans. My plans are this, you know, I'm doing these jobs. I've got to do this. I've got to do this work. It doesn't matter how long. I mean, every day, Father, what would you have me do? I know I'm supposed to go to work. I don't think you're going to let me out of that. Call in. I'm sorry, God won't let me come into work today. I know it's the craziest thing, but in my quiet time this morning, he said, don't come. Yeah, I can't believe it either. Yeah. You're going to fire me? Well, take it up with God. You know, he'll get you. Better be careful. Okay, have a good life. God be with you. Oh, no, he's going to be on you. Bye. That doesn't mean we get out of what we have to do. It means we join with him, asking him, what is it you want to accomplish? Lord, tune my ear to you. Let me hear you. I'm talking real live. This is where the rubber meets the road stuff. This is not la la land. This is where you get up in the morning and go, oh, God, I'm not. And I praise the Lord. Gotta praise the Lord. And you say to your angels, could you take over for me right now? Ministering angels, praise the Lord for me. I need a moment. He is specific with us. And he wants us to know that. He wants you to know his word. He wants us to know what it says in this Bible. Not just a couple of verses we hear. When we come on Sunday morning, that's just to whet our appetite. That's not the full course. We're to feed ourselves. We're to learn. And that's why we're here. Like tonight, we're learning what that means. We're learning that God says, come, let me teach you something. Let me show you something. Isn't this wonderful? And that we would have that excitement about what God's going to do in this day. Well, God begins to give them the plans. In 25:31 through 40, in verse 40, he's telling them how to make that lampstand. There's this big old lampstand in the tabernacle. And once again, in verse 40, he says, be sure that you make everything according to the pattern I have shown you here on the mountain. He's very specific. He's like a good daddy. He's coming back around and saying, remember, do it exactly like I told you. You know, remember, do exactly like I told you. Don't go off. Remember, I mean, he's very clear to give us those warnings. Do not go off on your own. Do exactly as I have told you. Well, then we get to Exodus 26. I'm just going to kind of go down the chapters and tell you what he talks about. We may be finished very early tonight. I have no idea. I just know this is what I have. This is what we're supposed to do. Okay, in Exodus 26, he gives the plans for the tabernacle. Just bottom line, plans for the tabernacle. 27, he gives plans for the altar of the burnt offering. He just didn't say, you know, put a stove over there in the corner and you're going to sacrifice a lamb somewhere over there. I don't know. Oh, blood. I don't know. No, he's got it. All right. 27:20 through 21, he gives plans for the light of the tabernacle. I mean, if I tell you to get a light or I need you to get a candle, I mean, you're probably going to know to get a candle. That's not what he meant. He has a specific way, specific things he wants for this light of the tabernacle. Remember, it was never to go out. the eternal light. Chapter 28, it's the clothing for the priest. Today, some of our folks would have a hard time because it doesn't say anything about backward ball caps. My dad just couldn't believe sometimes when he'd go to a church and the men wouldn't have ties on. It just irked him. He put messages in the offering plate. It was never for positive things. Doing a good job. Way to go. No, not my dad. Wear your ties. In chapter 28, verses 15 through 29, it's the design of the chest piece, the ephod. All of these words I'm using are from the New Living, what is it? Yeah. The New Living Translation. I thought we'd go to another one tonight. And then verses 31 through 42, there's additional clothing for the priest. Those of you who've done study of this, remember he told them basically underwear. He didn't want anything. Everything was modest. He was taking care of all the aspects of their clothing. I mean, that's a pretty specific God, isn't it? I mean, to make sure everything's covered. Yeah, he's got that plan. That's what he wants. Because he says you're going to be going up steps, so you need to make sure you're all covered. Then he's got in 29 the dedication of the priest. We need to remember sometimes in our lives we forget to dedicate things to him. It's been a while, but a long time ago we would get together when somebody moved in a new house. We would anoint the house. We would go through every room. We would anoint it. We would pray over it. We would ask God's blessing. And sometimes when people were having trouble, they would ask us over. We would come over and we would pray through every room. I mean, it was just something we did. We dedicate babies, dedicate houses, dedicate cars, dedicate things to the Lord. And it also helps us remember to whom it belongs and from whence it came. Because sometimes we think we earned it, right? I worked, I made my money, I bought that car, I got the ticket book, every month. No, dedicate that to the Lord. That's from him. Lord, you bless it. Dedication of the priest. In chapter 30, it was the plans for the incense altar. All you essential oil folks, get excited. In a moment, you're going to see he even had a recipe for it. But you can't use it because it's not supposed to be replicated. So in chapter 30, verses 11 through 16, he talks about how they're going to get the money to pay for the tabernacle, even out here. What they're supposed to give, because they just don't get the tabernacle for nothing. They have to give of what they've received from the Egyptians. Verse 17 through 21, it's plans for the wash basin. Now in 22, it's the recipe and instruction for the use of the anointing oil. Verses 34 through 38, recipe and plans for the incense. Those of you who like candles, he just didn't say bring your favorite. I mean, it's very specific of what he wanted in his tabernacle. In chapter 31, God chose and gifted his particular craftsman to be able to do the things. In verse 11, the last part of it, it says, the craftsman must make everything as I have commanded you. So he gifts us to do what he calls us to do. Guess what? They had never built a tabernacle. I mean, they've been slaves. They built pyramids. Maybe that gave them a little hand up. I don't know. But God, once again, said, even though they're going to be gifted, you tell them to follow my instructions to the letter. Sometimes when I'm working on something, a piece of writing, a little bit of painting I do, or whatever, I'll just say, Lord, what do you want this to be? What is it? What is it? What's it supposed to be? And go with him in that journey and that adventure. Lord, show me how to do this. In chapter 31, verses 12 through 18, he gives instructions for the Sabbath. So he's been very specific with what he wants them to do. And he's on the, he's on the mountain, and they're talking, and, 10 commandments, I'm giving you these commandments, I'm giving you these instructions, this is how I want you to live. And then we get to chapter 32. If you don't have your Bible open, turn to chapter 32 in Exodus. Stuff is about to hit the fan here. Genesis, Exodus, second book. 32. Now, don't forget, God is with Moses. Moses is with God. And he's telling them all this stuff that he's to do in this tabernacle that's going to bring them closer to him. His presence is going to be in that tabernacle. Okay? God, come down here. This is where I need to dwell. This is what you do. This is how I want you to run it. Giving them those specific instructions. Well, here we are back at the KOA. 32, verse 1. When the people saw how long it was taking Moses to come back down the mountain, when the people saw how long it was taking Moses to come back down from the mountain, talking to the living God, with the smoke and the thunder and the one who led us out of Egypt, that one. They gathered around Aaron. Come on, they said, make us some gods who can lead us. We don't know what happened to this fellow Moses who brought us here from the land of Egypt. Now, don't forget, we got all the story of Moses. God came to Moses. God talked to Moses. God used Moses to help them. These folks were just in the big millions of people who got let out. So some of them may not have ever even met Moses. So don't be too hard on them, but God is. Come on, we don't know what happened to this fellow Moses who brought us here from the land of Egypt. So Aaron said, idiot, take the gold rings from the ears of your wives and sons and daughters and bring them to me. Well, I bet they were real happy to take those off after they just got them from the Egyptians. I'm not giving you my earrings. No, we need them to make gods. Hand them over. Now, don't miss the symbolism here. How often do we make gods out of what we own? Well, we're not any different. And I'm not saying that in a, like Snoopy when he's doing that vulture kind of thing he does off of his house. No, it's not in a judgmental way. It's in a beseeching way. Let's be careful. Let's don't do that. Let's go to God often and say, am I making something a god besides you? And so in verse 3, all the people took the gold rings from their ears and brought them to Aaron. Then Aaron took the gold, melted it down, and molded it into the shape of a calf. I wonder why they always pick calves. Did you? That's a Christy question, isn't it? Where is she when you need her? The shape of a calf. When the people saw it, they exclaimed. Now look what they said. New Living Translation says it this way. "O Israel, these are the gods who brought you out of the land of Egypt." You mean those earrings and rings? They're the gods? No, you mean the calf he just made from the gold? We just saw him melt down and make it. That's what brought us. It just got created. Do you think they were a bunch of idiots? What? Where's your head? You were here when you saw Aaron make it. Aaron saw how excited the people were, so he built an altar in front of the calf. I love this translation. He saw how excited they were, so he built this altar. We need to be careful that we're not going off of whether folks are excited or not about what we're doing. We need to be careful. When folks are pushing us to do something, we need to make sure God tells us. And look what he says. Then he announced, tomorrow will be a festival to the Lord. Well, they got up early the next morning to sacrifice burnt offerings and peace offerings. After this, they celebrated with feasting and drinking. And here we go. And they indulged in pagan revelry. When we worship other gods, it always leads us to pagan worship. It never leads us to the true living God. We're going the wrong direction. We can stop, confess, and ask the Lord to forgive us. But I think tonight part of the first question is there anything in your life that you've put above Him? And let's just get real honest about it. How about your reputation? I know it's harder for me as I'm getting older because, I've done a lot of things in my life, and I know what I've done. I know what I've been. I know what I've been capable of. I know what I've accomplished. But y'all don't know. And so when people don't know, they don't know. You know what I'm saying? So they don't think you're who you think you are. Does that make sense? They don't understand who you are. You're just that person to them who sits next to them in church. Like some of you have said, I've seen you around doing the concessions for chapel, but I didn't know you could teach the Bible. I just do such a good job with those concessions. You know what I'm saying? We do that. We get older and we go, you don't know where I've been. I've run rings around your little self. And there's this arrogance that comes off of them, and you just want to go, oh. But you know who you are. But even in that, you're like, God, they don't know who I am. And He's like, yeah, I know who you are. You give that to me. You don't let that by. You don't go clamoring over other people or whatever. And I get really nervous when people clamor over me because I don't want to be a leader. I don't want you to follow me. All these years, people will say, I want to follow you. I go, I don't know where I'm going. Do not follow me. We'll all wind up into the wall. I live in a ditch. You don't want to live there, do you? Well, then they got pagan revelry. Mark my word, that's what we're trying to teach our teenagers. Sweetheart, you go down that road, it's going to lead you to a bad place. And they don't know. They think you're an idiot. They just think that it won't happen to them. We've been there, haven't we? We've been there, done that, wish we hadn't. But we can also say, and sweetheart, when you don't do what mom tells you and you get in a mess, let me tell you, there's a grace of God. We need to teach them that when they have that golden calf in their bedroom, there is also a way to God and grace and mercy. Because He knows we're prone to golden calves. Well, then I love this. God is the one who tells Moses he better get back down the mountain. Verse 7, the Lord said to Moses, quick, go down the mountain, your people whom you've, I love this part, the people whom you've brought from the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. Can you see Moses? I didn't want to lead them. What are you talking about? What do you mean the people I led out? Weren't you the one leading? I was following you. What are you talking about? There's always a price of leadership, isn't there? I mean, there's a price of leadership. And even God's like, those people you brought, look what they're doing. I just think that's funny. God, it's funny. If we read the Word as adults, it's really funny. How quickly they have turned away from the way I commanded them to live. They have melted down gold and made a calf, and they have bowed down and sacrificed to it. They are saying, these are your gods, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Let me just ask you one question. Is that exactly what they said? I'll help you. Yes. God knew exactly what they said because He's everywhere. You don't hide from God. He knows. And He's there saying, baby, give that to me. No, you don't need that. We're going to have to work on this. This is a path now back. We've got to reclaim that ground. Verse 9, then the Lord said, I have seen how stubborn and rebellious these people are. Now leave me alone, so my fierce anger can blaze against them, and I will destroy them. Then I will make you, Moses, into a great nation. Well, then I don't know how to explain this, but he changes God's mind. It says in verse 14. I don't want to get into it because I don't understand. But he did. Let's always be praying to God for the people in our lives, asking God's mercy and grace. Well, then Moses goes down on verse 15, and he's got the stone tablets. And in my version, verse 15 says, inscribed with the terms of the covenant. Does it say something like that in your version? Inscribed with the terms of the covenant. Remember what we've learned all these weeks? Covenants have terms. There are requirements in the covenants. And then you make two copies of the covenant that you enter into, one for you, one for me. And some of the places, they fold it down into a little bitty piece of something, and they put it in a little leather thing, and they tie it to their heads, or they tie it to their arm, or they tie, somewhere they have it so they can see it and remind them of their covenant. So here he comes down, and he's got the covenant. It says they were inscribed on both sides, front and back. These tablets were God's work. The words on them were written by God himself. Moses didn't, chip it out. God did. And little sweet Joshua, it sounds like war in the camp. No, it's not a shout of victory, nor the wailing of defeat. I hear the sound of a celebration. And when they came near the camp, Moses saw the calf and the dancing, and he burned with anger. And he threw the stone tablets to the ground, smashing them at the foot of the mountain. And he took the calf they made and burned it. And then he ground it into a powder, threw it into the water, and forced the people to drink it. And he turned to Aaron and demanded, why did these people do to you? What did they do to you to make you bring such terrible sin upon them? Well, don't get so upset, my lord, Aaron replied. You yourself know how evil these people are. They said to me, make us gods who will lead us. We don't know what happened to this fellow Moses who brought us here from the land of Egypt. So I told them, whoever has gold jewelry, take it off. And when they brought it to me, I simply threw it in the fire, and out came this calf. You what? You think I'm going to believe that? It's his brother. So, he thinks, yeah, I'm going to tell my brother and he's going to buy this. They just brought me. You know how evil they are. They just brought me all their stuff. I threw it in the fire and this thing jumped out. You mean the thing I just ground up and made everybody drink? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Moses saw that Aaron had let the people get completely out of control. In my version, it says, much to the amusement of their enemies. Does anybody else's version have anything to do with the enemies? The enemies are watching. You know what our enemies do when we have divisions and we go to the front page of the newspaper to air our laundry, or we whatever, even if it's not known to the public, Satan and his minions, they can observe us and see us. It says their enemies were amused. Amused at what they had done because they were idiots. They were going away from the God who would lead them to victory. Don't go away from the God who will lead you to victory. I'm single, yeah, but if I'd gotten married early, I probably would have killed him. He would have been in heaven. I would have been in jail and on Oprah. But I just feel like that I'm going to meet him in heaven. He's going to be perfect. I'm going to be perfect. It's going to be a really nice thing in heaven when we meet. I don't know why. Some of you say, well, I know why. I don't know why. It wasn't something that I planned. The things in my life I haven't all planned. Do you ever sit just when you're by yourself drinking your coffee and you look in your coffee and you go, I don't know why this is like it is. I can't seem to fix it. I didn't ever imagine this. This has not worked out like I had hoped it would. But when we feel that, remember God's presence is with us right there. Lord, I don't know why you've let this happen. Lord, I'm disappointed. I'm sad. But I just give all that to you because I don't want to throw it in a fire and a calf come out. That just gets funnier and funnier the more I think about it. I mean, we just don't read this good stuff much, do we? I mean, this is the good stuff. You know, we talk about Acts and all the Hebrew words and stuff. Let's talk about calves jumping out of a fire. That'll get the kids' attention. Y'all probably do talk about it all the time, yeah. Okay, chapter 33. This is funny. Chapter 33. Oh, God's so funny. The Lord said to Moses, verse 1, get going, you and the people you brought up from the land of Egypt. Go up to the land I swore to give Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Don't miss that. Underline it. Go to the land that I swore to give Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He is still referring to the covenant that he made with Abraham, and he promised him this land. None of these people knew Abraham. And God's saying, even though I'm so mad at you, I could spit. Here, you go up, and I will send an angel before you to drive out all those ites, Canaanites, Amorites, Hittites, Jebusites, Jebusites. Go up to this land that flows with milk and honey. Does anybody know, has anybody ever wondered why he said it was a land of milk and honey? You ever wondered that? Like, what's milk and honey got to do with it? Is it like ice cream flavors? You know, what is it? Well, if you're a farmer, you want honey. The evidence of that is, where does honey come from? Bees. What do bees do for farmers? They pollinate our plants. So it's a good place for growing. And then flowing with milk, guess what gives milk? Cows, sheep, goats. Those animals that they're going to have because they're going to herd. So when they go to a land flowing with milk and honey, it's a good place to grow animals, for animals to survive, and it's a good place to grow crops. So what you've wondered all your life, I've just answered. But here's what he says. But I will not travel with you. I will not travel among you, my version says. Somebody else, mine says among you, meaning he's not going to travel within them. For you are a stubborn and rebellious people. If I did, I would surely destroy you along the way. It just reminds me of God saying, I'm going to turn this caravan around, and we're going to go right back to Egypt. Y'all cut that out. I'm not going to go with you because you know why? I'll kill every one of you. I mean, that's what he says. Now look, verse 4. When the people heard these stern words, that's what it says in my Bible. When they heard these stern words, they went into mourning and stopped wearing their jewelry and fine. They went into mourning and quit wearing their fine clothes and jewelry. I just don't feel like putting it on today, baby. I'm just not putting on my jewelry. I'm going to leave that dress off. I just don't. That's what it says. They didn't feel like it. Have you ever felt like that before when you've done stuff you're not supposed to do? You just don't feel like doing what you've normally done. For the Lord had told Moses to tell them, you are a stubborn and rebellious people. If I were to travel with you for even a moment, I would destroy you. God told him to do this. Remove your jewelry and fine clothes while I decide what to do with you. You all go to your room and take that stuff off. So from the time they left Mount Sinai, the Israelites wore no more jewelry or clothes. Or fine clothes. They wore clothes, but not fine clothes. Can't you imagine the ones who wore that? Every time they look at it, they're like, nope, I'm not putting that on. It might jump out of the fire like a calf. And then it's very interesting where the scripture goes. Because while they're in trouble, then we get the passage about Moses' practice of meeting with God. And it is a tender, amazing thing. Imagine the millions of people who were there. And the way they set up their tents was in tribes. Okay, so it was in circles of tribes. So they went around the circles, and so Moses is in the tent of meeting in the middle, and here's what it says in 33:7. It was Moses' practice to take the tent of meeting and set it up some distance from the camp. Everyone who wanted to make a request of the Lord would go to the tent of meeting outside the camp. Whenever Moses went out to the tent of meeting, all the people would get up and stand in the entrances of their own tents. They would all watch Moses until he disappeared inside. As he went into the tent, the pillar of cloud would come down and hover at its entrance while the Lord spoke with Moses. When the people saw the cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, they would stand and bow down in front of their own tents. Inside the tent of meeting, the Lord would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. Afterwards, Moses would return to the camp, but the young man who assisted him, Joshua, son of Nun, would remain behind in the tent of meeting. So Joshua stayed in the tent. Get this picture. Every time he would go meet the Lord in the tent of meeting, every man probably would go to the mouth of their tent, to the door of their tent, and they all would be looking at Moses going in. And then the cloud, remember it's a presence, it's not a poof, it's not vapor. The cloud would descend to stand. Does it say stand in your Bible? Doesn't say float, it's not Casper, it's got essence to it. It would stand at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and what would they do? They would stand and then they would bow. They would bow at the evidence of the presence of God. I want to challenge us that we need to take time in our days and say, Father, where is your presence? Show me your presence. Let me sense your presence, and take a moment of sacredness, a moment of holiness in traffic, in the line at Kroger, Publix, Walmart, in the middle of class with the kids, in your job, when the children are tearing stuff apart, when the calves are jumping out of the fire. No, stop. I am thinking that older people like myself have not done a very good job to teach some of you younger people what it means to walk in the way of a holy God. I take that mea culpa. I take that upon me. My generation, we are the ones who are supposed to tell you of the faithfulness of God. We're supposed to tell you the stories of God's faithfulness out of this book and to us personally. That's what I learned from Miss Helen. She would tell me the stories of God in the Bible, and then she would tell me the stories of God's faithfulness to her personally, and then she would encourage me to look for my own. If you don't have any stories of God's faithfulness, if you only talk about yourself when you talk, hush. Ask God to begin to show you the places He has been faithful to you. Because I promise you, He has been faithful. He has gotten our rear out of the fire many a time. He has been faithful. He is faithful. He will be faithful. Why? Because He's a God of exactness. He knows exactly what He's doing. He knows exactly what He wants us to do. He knows exactly what it's going to take for us to get there. And He's going to ride us to the end. He's going to take us there. He's going to lead us there. Now, we have two choices. When He asks us to follow, we can do it His way or do it His way. We're either going to go easy or we're going to go hard. But if you've entered into covenant with God, you're in covenant with God through Jesus. You are no longer your own. If He wants you to be not cool anymore, guess what? Try on the gooberness. I mean, sometimes He says, I want you to go to this place where no one knows you. I want you to go and do this thing. I want you to be out of your comfort zone. I want you to talk about me, bring me up, and see what I will do on your behalf. I was invited to speak in England at this church through a second party. And when I got there, they decided they didn't want me to speak in their church. And I had gone to England. Not Wetumpka, not Montgomery, England. And so the pastor's wife met me at the airport. And I had just gotten this message right before I left. There wasn't any like redoing it. I was going. I was going on standby. I'd not charged them any money. So I got this message, and so she came to pick me up, not the pastor. And she wasn't very friendly. And so when I went around to get in the car, she said, "Are you going to drive?" And I'm like, "No, ma'am." She says, "Well, you need to get over there." I was at the wrong side of the car. I forgot. Okay, so sue me. I'm an American. I mean, we even started off bad. I'm like, I forgot. I'm from the colonies. You know, we got out of here. Now I know why. I have a little inkling of why we went all that way across the ocean. So we get to her house. This still makes me laugh. We had tacos. Tacos for supper. Tacos. I mean, it just took everything it was in me not to go, tacos. Tacos. And when she said, "Pass the taco sauce," I about lost it. That evening after our taco meal, she comes in my bedroom with a map, and she says, "I'm going to help you see if you can find what to do while you're here." So she planned this trip out on the map, because I had a train pass, and those were the places, and she was, tomorrow morning, we'll take you to the train station. Okie dokie. I've come to speak in her church, and she's putting me on a train to take a tour around Scotland and England. So I get on the train, and I had hurt my shoulder. I'd been in therapy, so it wasn't the best time for me to come to carry things. And so I wanted to go to Oxford. That was my first stop. I wanted to, do the C.S. Lewis thing, and I thought, well, if I'm going to go, I'll go there. Well, it took me a while to get there because we had trouble with the train pass, blah, blah, blah. And she left me on my own, so I had trouble with the train pass. And so when I finally got there, I didn't have any lodging. I was going to stay with, I was going to stay with them, but no, I wasn't. And so when I got there, they have these, I forget what they call them, but you can go to a center and you can get a B&B, but you have to sign up. And I was there a little early in the season, So a lot of them weren't open. So I went to this center in Oxford, and I was standing at the counter, and I was short, and it was tall, so I was like a head to the lady, and she was a French lady, and she was trying to call ahead to the next city to see if she could find me lodging. And she called, nope. I mean, I bet for 30 minutes she's calling, trying to find me lodging around the area. And so I'm standing there, and it was just as plain as day, the Lord in my heart. Now, I didn't hear a voice. I'll say this again, I don't hear voices. I do, but I don't. I didn't hear a voice, but you know when thoughts come in your head and you know they're not yours? This was that. And he said, bring me up. I said, what? Bring you up? Yeah, speak my name. Bring me up. I am trying to get someplace to stay. I'm not a church. This is not a church. She put me on the train. I'm here trying to get a place. What do you mean, bring you? I really did have this conversation with God. He said, bring me up. Okay. How am I going to bring him up? I'm looking over at her, and she's calling. She's not looking up at me. I'm like, she's not even looking at me. No, bring me up. Okay. So I said, excuse me. How's it going? Well, having trouble. Well, I tell you what. While you call, I'm going to pray to God. She didn't even look up. She didn't flinch. I said, I'm going to pray to Jesus. I just felt like an idiot. I'm like, but I brought him up. I mean, he said, bring me up. I'm like, okay, I'll bring you up. Said God and Jesus. I said both of those. The next phone call. Miss Coleman, I believe we have someplace for you to stay. Well, praise God. I'd already brought him up. I mean, it was a miracle. I mean, there was no place to stay. I had no time in Oxford. I rolled down the street and got right back on the train. It was dark. So we went to the next place. I got off the train. It was dark. I rolled my little suitcase in the dark to my little hotel. I was the only person there because it was early. They didn't even know why the woman said, yes, we'll take you. The man said, I'm not sure why my wife said you could stay here because we're not open yet. Maybe because I brought up Jesus. Maybe that's why. And I got in there, and I was hurting so badly. My shoulder was hurting. And I just said, Lord, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't bring you up to begin with, that you had to remind me. Because in the States, it wouldn't have been a problem, right? I mean, we bring God up all the time. But, you know, here he wanted me to know, A, he was present with me. B, I needed to be a witness. And C, that woman needed to hear the name of God. And also see that God provided for me when there was nothing to be had. See, those are the stories of God's provision we all have. How God brought you a place, or he brought you here. He did this for you. I was being brought from a retreat, and this pregnant lady was driving her husband's car, and another lady was there, and I was sitting on the back seat over the back tire, and all of a sudden I heard this bam, 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 bam. They just kept talking. I said, excuse me, I think we have a flat back here. Really? You think so? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure it's right here. Right? Probably we were in Atlanta. She pulls off the interstate this far. I mean, you know, whoosh. So finally she gets out, the pregnant lady gets out. And we're standing there, and I said, hey, we're looking at each other. I'm looking at them, and they're looking at me. They're both looking at me. Like, do you know how to change a tire? No, we've never changed a tire. So, well, I haven't either. I'm the speaker. I mean, what do you mean I'm supposed to change the tire? And I'm like, okay, well, there's a book. There's a book in the glove compartment. Well, this is my husband's car. I don't know where the book is. In the glove compartment. You begin you start talking crisply, don't you? Not snarky, just crisp. It's very crisp in what I said. And so it's getting dark, so she hands it to me, and I begin to look, and I'm like trying to figure out, and I'm like, where's the jack? I don't know. So I'm like, okay, it's around here somewhere. So we're trying to find the jack. I said, Lord, we need an angel. We need someone, please. And I'd been talking the whole weekend about God's provision. I'd been talking about how God takes care of us. I've been talking about how God answers our prayers, and we have a flat tire. So I'm on the ground underneath this van trying to get the jack attached, and I realized somebody pulled off, and it was an older, kind of weird-looking man in a truck pulling a boat. And I looked, and the girl said, I wonder if that's our angel. I said, not him, God. And right when he pulled off and began to get out, a young man in a BMW pulled behind him. When he looked in his rearview mirror and saw him, he took off like a bat. I mean, like screeched out of there with his boat. He was not there for good intent. And so the young man came up, and I'd been talking about not having a husband and everything. So the pregnant lady's like, I wonder if this is your husband. I'm like, I could be his mother. No, this is not my husband. This is a nice guy God has sent. It was like one of those nightmares. So I'm on the ground, and he comes up, and I'm like, hey. He gets under there with me. Hey. They don't know what they're doing, and I'm trying. I said, I'll help. What can I do? And he said, I tell you what, let me do this. I said, okay, you work, and I'll pray to God. And he said, I know him too. And I said, I bet you do. And so he fixed the flat. And when we got back on the road, I said, you know, the Lord provides. He took care of us. He didn't have to do that, but he did. What did he give us? A story. It wasn't a story. I'm not telling you the stories where I threw the gold in and the calf jumped out. But I have some stories like that. I do. Where I have not trusted God, I have wanted God's, because I have said to God, you are taking too much time. And so I'm going to have to take care of myself. Anybody want to say that they've said that once or twice? If you haven't, you will. It gets excruciating when you're waiting, doesn't it? Oh, it's excruciating. But the Lord said, I'm going to send this angel, and he's going to go before you. And then Moses said, please, I want to see you. I want to see your glory. After all this, then we get the tent of meeting story, and then we get Moses wanting to see his face. He's already talks to him face to face, but he said one day, Moses said to the Lord, verse 12 of 33 Exodus, you have been telling me, take these people up to the promised land, but you haven't told me whom you will send with me. You have told me, I know you by name, and I look favorably on you. If it's true that you look favorably on me, let me know your ways so I may understand you more fully and continue to enjoy your favor. And I love this P.S. And remember that this nation is your very own people. You know, not mine. And the Lord replied, I will personally go with you, Moses, and I will give you rest. Everything will be fine for you. He didn't say he'd give him power. He didn't say he'd give him wisdom. He didn't say he would help him with endurance. What does he say he'll do? I will go with you personally, and I will give you rest. Let me just tell you, I don't think we're a very good people of rest. It's hard. You have to be intentional to take the rest that God gives us. Because when you and I begin to recognize what that sense is like when you have the rest of God, when you have the presence of God and His rest, there is something that settles us. It settles us and we go, I don't know what He's going to do, but I know He's God over me. And I don't care what He does. I can trust Him. And then I get to say, and you can trust Him too. Until we begin to trust God with all, or try to learn, try to say, Father, I don't know how to trust you, show me. Until we know that, I can't look at you and go, I know He'll do it for you too. I know He will. I'm the poster child for idiocy. If He'll do it for me, oh my gosh, yes, He'll do it for you. And there's hope. Do you see the hope? I mean, we're going out the what? We got, oh my gosh, we got troops up in New York. What are those Yankees up to? Y'all calm down up there. Don't bring out the National Guard to quarantine people and put them into camps. It's like we've had the flu down here for 6 months and we've not quarantined anybody. We just keep passing it around. Some people die. Yes, they do. Some people die from the coronavirus. Yes, they do. But when it's my time, I'm going to go. We have to believe that God gives us our days. And we don't have to live in fear. Darren's been trying to tell us that from the platform. But we just need to not buy into this hysteria. Remember? That's what happened to Aaron. He bought into the hysteria and decided he would throw in with it, and he got in a lot of trouble. What happened? That calf jumped right out of that fire. Don't buy into it. You just be careful. You do what you normally do. When I was walking around in Cookeville, I didn't know what was in all that dirt. I didn't know what was there. I didn't know what I was breathing. Yeah, I've had a sore throat ever since I've come home. But I was breathing lots of stuff. Fiberglass, dust from everything, from where it was pulverized. You just do what you have to do and ask God to be our stay. I am not trying to deride you or to belittle you or to humiliate you. I'm saying be strong and courageous because we have the living God. And if we don't live it, how do we tell Him? How do we bring Him up? How do we bring Him up? Just as awkwardly as I did with that French lady. I'll pray for you. I'll pray to God for you. I'll pray to the Lord Jesus Christ for you. Say His name. What does that song Sandy Patty used to sing? There's power in the name of Jesus. There's power in the name of Jesus. And we don't misuse that, but it's His name. So God says, okay, I will indeed, verse 17, do what you've asked me, for I look favorably on you, and I know you by name. Then Moses responds, then show me your glorious presence. And the Lord replied, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will call out my name, Yahweh, before you. For I will show mercy to anyone I choose, and I will show compassion to anyone I choose. But you may not look directly at my face, for no one may see me and live. The Lord continued, look, stand near me on this rock. As my glorious presence passes by, I will hide you in the crevice of the rock and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand and let you see me from behind, but my face will not be seen. I just think that's still funny. God says, you can't see my face, but you can see my back. And I'm going to cover you in the crevice with my hand. And Moses was there looking. Can you imagine what it was like for God's hand to be covering the crevice? Think about this with your mind's eyes. What was it like when the presence of God went by, and God raised his hand a little bit when he was past, and Moses could see God's back. He was real. This presence is real. It is not a figment of his imagination. And then he says, I know you by name. There is no other God who knows the supplicants by name. The supplicants go to the God and try to tell him their name, try to tell him what they want. He doesn't. Our God doesn't do that. Our God does not do that. He calls us by name. Well, we see that in Exodus 34, Moses writes a new copy of the covenant. And remember, the Lord had told him that he wanted him to put those where he wanted him to put those 2 tablets. Some people think there's 5 commandments on one side and 5 commandments on the other. Remember, there's always 2 copies of a covenant. Your copy and the other person's copy. So it's all on one, but God is saying, keep both of the copies of the covenant. I don't need it. You keep it in there. Why? Because the people knew that's what you did with covenants. You have 2 copies of the terms. We've learned that. Okay? This was the covenant. And we see in 34 verse 10, the first part of that verse, the Lord replied, listen, I am making a covenant with you in the presence of your people. I will perform miracles that have never been seen performed anywhere in all the earth or in any nation. And all the people around you will see the power of the Lord, the awesome power I will display for you. Then God gave his commands, which must be obeyed. And 27 of chapter 34, it says, then the Lord said to Moses, write down all these instructions, for they represent the terms of the covenant I am making with you and Israel. Don't forget, he is cutting a covenant here with Israel. He is cutting a covenant. They were very familiar with it. They knew exactly what he was talking about. And God said, I'm cutting this covenant with you, and I will always remember it. Then we get to 2 Samuel chapter 7, and we get to the Davidic covenant. The Davidic covenant. Now, we start with Abraham, and then when we get to David, once again, God promises something to David he doesn't promise to the Israelites. He doesn't promise except to Abraham and to David, because Jesus is going to come from this line. And we know that David was a man after God's own heart. We know that David was a godly ruler. We know that he sought the Lord. We also know that he had sex with Bathsheba and made a baby and tried to make Uriah lie with her so he would cover his sin up. And when he wouldn't do that, he was too honorable a man, then he had him killed on the front line. I always have wondered what it was like when David got to heaven and there was Uriah. What'd they say to one another? Hey, brother. Yeah, I was a lowlife. I mean, don't you ever think, maybe you don't. I don't know. I think about stuff like that. Now, in 2 Samuel 7, 1 through 17, the word covenant is never used. He never says covenant. And this is the place where David has been living in his own house, and he says, you know what, I've been living in my own house, and God doesn't even have a house of cedar. Cedar must have been the wood of the time. He said he doesn't have a house. I'm going to build him a house. And God's like, he says to Nathan, he doesn't say it to David, he says it to Nathan the prophet, tell him I don't want him to build me a house. Somebody else is going to build me a house. But then he goes on and he says, let me get there. Samuel. You know, the lady from was it the CDC, when she was talking about the virus, and she was reading from her notes, and she was telling everybody what to do and to make sure they wash their hands, and this is what she did. She licked her finger. I have to do it too. I mean, I don't got no spit on my finger, but she licked her. See, if you watch, you see funny stuff everywhere. I mean, everywhere. I bet she didn't even realize it. And I bet none of her aides told her either. Mama, you licked the paper. I'm not touching that paper. Can you see them? They come in those little hot dog things and get it and take it over and burn it. Okay, look at verse 8. 2 Samuel 7, verse 8. And he's talking to Nathan to tell this to David. Now go and say to my servant David. Do you ever see that he talks? I mean, he's got stuff he says. And his specific stuff is not like, ooh, like all this stuff. He says words. He gives instructions. This is what the Lord of heaven's armies has declared. I took you from tending sheep in the pasture and selected you to be the leader of my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone, and I have destroyed all your enemies before your eyes. What kind of talk is this? Oh, please tell me. Covenant talk. Thank you. Thank you very much. Lady in the back, thank you. The one Diane who writes my PowerPoint. Thank you very much. Covenant. Covenant. This is covenant talk. Why? He's the stronger. He's protecting. He says, I've protected you. I've gone before you. I've taken you from tending the sheep. Now I will make your name as famous as anyone who has ever lived on the earth. And I will provide a homeland for my people Israel, planting them in a secure place where they will never be disturbed. Evil nations won't oppress them as they've done in the past, starting from the time I appointed judges to rule my people Israel, and I will give you rest from all your enemies. Furthermore, the Lord declares that he will make a house for you, a dynasty of kings. For when you die and are buried with your ancestors, I will raise up one of your descendants, your own offspring, and I will make his kingdom strong. He is the one who will build a house, a temple for my name. Now we know Solomon did, but it's bigger than that. And I will secure his royal throne forever. Does anybody else have forever in your Bible? Forever. You know how long that is? Forever. God didn't make a promise to David that had limitations. The Mosaic covenant, where they were supposed to do what he asked them to do, and if they didn't do it, then he didn't have to keep his part. The law would never work. They would never be able to do what he told them to. But he gave it to them to teach them that they could not do that law. I mean, sometimes we have to go through where we go, I can't do that. I hate saying that. Do y'all hate saying that? We're strong people. We hate saying, I can't do that. I need help. I do not need help. Yes, you do. It's easier when you got somebody to help. And sometimes when I'm at the house by myself, I'm like, you're my husband. I can't reach that. What am I going to do? Help me. And you go, you really don't. No, you know me well enough by now. I really do. He says, I will be his father, and he will be my son. He's talking about the children coming. If he sins, I will correct and discipline him with the rod like any father would do. But my favor will not be taken from him as I took it from Saul when I removed from your sight, whom I removed from your sight. Your house and your kingdom will continue before me for all time, and your throne will be secure forever. I don't know how you feel about Israel, the nation of Israel, but God has been very clear in his word that David's throne, David's line through Jesus is going to live forever. Does that mean there's that we throw in with the physical state of Israel? I don't know, but when you study Revelation, he sure talks a lot about coming back right there. Read the book. Don't see the movie. Read the book. And we need to see that God has a plan that goes beyond our understanding. I don't understand it. I'm not supposed to. Now, this is another funny part. I can't wait to. We're almost out of time. Shoot fire. Okay, we're going to hurry. This is funny. Okay, look at 2 Chronicles 13. 2 Chronicles 13. Now, he did not say covenant in all that thing that he said to Nathan to tell to David. Never said the word covenant. Never said cut a covenant in that. But look what people knew that he meant covenant, because now we've got Abijah. Abijah is the king of Judah. And there was a war that broke out between Judah and Israel. And Abijah, in 2 Chronicles 13, fielded 400,000 select warriors. And Jeroboam, who was from Israel, mustered 800,000. So Abijah with Judah had half of the soldiers that Jeroboam had with Israel. And look at verse 4. This is the funniest thing in the world. It says, when the army of Judah arrived in the hill country of Ephraim, Abijah stood on Mount Zemaraim and shouted to Jeroboam and all Israel, listen to me. Don't you realize that the Lord, the God of Israel, made a lasting covenant with David, giving him and his descendants the throne of Israel forever? Yet Jeroboam, son of Nebat, a mere servant of David's son Solomon, rebelled against his master. Then a whole gang of scoundrels joined him, defying Solomon's son Rehoboam when he was young and inexperienced and could not stand up to them. Do you really think you can stand against the kingdom of the Lord that is led by the descendants of David? You may have a vast army, and you have those gold calves. There they are again. They keep jumping out of the fire that Jeroboam made as your gods. Don't miss it. He makes it very clear. These are made by hands. And they don't breathe. But you have chased away the priests of the Lord, the descendants of Aaron, and the Levites, and you have appointed your own priest, just like pagan nations. You let anyone become a priest these days. Whoever comes to be dedicated with a young bull and 7 rams can become a priest of the so-called gods of yours. All you need is a bull and 7 rams, and you too can be a priest. But as for us, the Lord is our God, and we have not abandoned him. Only the descendants of Aaron serve the Lord as priests, and the Levites alone may help them in their work. They present burnt offerings. We just spent all that time of what God told them to, how to make everything in the tabernacle, to do these very things, to present the burnt offerings and fragrant incense to the Lord every morning and evening. They place the bread of the presence on the holy table, and they light the gold lampstand every evening. We are following the instructions of the Lord our God, but you have abandoned him. So you see, God is with us. He is our leader. His priests blow their trumpets and lead us into battle against you, O people of Israel. Do not fight against the Lord, the God of your ancestors, for you will not succeed. The next scripture, I don't have time to read it, but Numbers 10 talks about how the priests were the only ones who were supposed to blow the trumpets. They blew them at certain times, feasts, festivals, going into battle. And oh, there is one thing. Did you do the numbers? The trumpets will remind your God of his covenant with you. When he hears the trumpets blown by the priest of Aaron, he says, it will remind your God of his covenant with you. I am the Lord your God. I'm the one who will be reminded. I just love it when God says he's going to be reminded. Not that he forgets, but he hears it, and he is blessed. He is blessed. Next week, we'll pick up there. I want to finish up with Jeremiah, but I want you to have just a few minutes to talk in your groups. Where have you seen the evidence of God in your life? Or do you want to see it if you have not? And then pray with one another. Pray. Pray that you will see God. Pray that he will make his presence known. We've asked that he would do the deeds that he did in the days of old. Well, let's trust him as his people did in the days of old. Let's follow him with our whole hearts. Don't work on being cool. Work on being obedient. Glorify God in where you are. In the darkness, in the light, in the mud, in the muck, in the tornado, in the death, in the grief, in the sorrow, in the loss. Though he slay me, Job said, yet I will trust the Lord. So blessings, may the word sink deep in your hearts, and talk among yourselves at your tables for at least 4 minutes or longer. We won't run you out. Thank you.